When you're starting out in chess, they always tell you, don't do this move, don't make that move, but they never explain to you why. So what I'm going to do in this video is explain to you why protecting your pawn on e5 with f6 is such a bad move, and if you're playing with the white pieces, how to take full advantage of this move and absolutely crush your opponents. So let's just begin. So obviously this move, pawn to f6, this defense is called the Damiano defense. One of the things about this move is that it weakens the f7 square. Now if we had something along this diagonal and along this diagonal, we can attack this square. Now in chess, time is very important. So in order to attack those squares, right now at the moment, we don't have any pieces to put in those diagonals. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to sacrifice our knight on e5. Not only are we getting a pawn, but we're also, if black doesn't do anything, we're already putting pressure on the f7 square, as we mentioned earlier. So black here is going to capture, and here is where we use the time that we gain by moving this knight out. Now we can go ahead and put this queen here on h5 and threaten the king right away. Now, black can go ahead and get out of the check with g6, but then we're going to take on e5, put the king in check, take the rook, and it's going to be game over. So this is not going to happen. Instead, the other move that black can play here is to go for king to e7. And after we take on e5 with check, black only has one move and is to go to the square on f7. And it's here that we're going to use the other diagonal that we mentioned earlier. We're going to develop our bishop to c4, put the king in check. Now, there's a couple of options here for black. He can go g6, which is the worst of them, and then there's another really bad option, but it's not as bad as king to g6, with pawn to d5. Let's first look at king to g6. If king to g6, we're going to go ahead with queen to f5, put the king in check. Only move is to go king to h6, and here we're going to give this discover check with the pawn to d3. Now this bishop is attacking the king. This king cannot move. If the queen here gets in the way, well, we take with our queen, checkmate to the king. Thank you very much. And if they want to prolong the game, they have to go pawn to g5 here. And when they do this, then we're going to hit them with this very calm and quiet move, h4. And this is not a quiet move at all. The threat right now is to take here with double check with the pawn and the rook. And once the king comes to g7, we're going to go queen to f7, checkmate on the king, game over. So what can black do here? Well, if queen to e8, we take with the queen, checkmate, so that's not possible. And if queen to e7, then we take with the bishop, put the king in check, attack the queen. The king moves to not to get checkmated. We take the queen. After bishop takes, this rook is going to come to h3, come to g3, and it's going to be checkmate in a few moves. So this is how we win against this variation. Now, what happens if instead, if the king here, they go for d5 instead? Well, d5, we take with the bishop. Again, we put the king in check. The only move is to come to g6, but there's a main difference now in the position. This square on f5, in the previous variation, we gave a check here. Now this square is controlled by the bishop, and that's why d5 was such a useful move. But not to worry, I have something for you guys here. It's called deflection, and we are going to, before we do the deflection, we're going to play this move, h4. This is a very nasty move because we're not only hitting h5, king h6, and then put the pawn forward, again with a very strong attack. So the only way to now prevent all of this from happening is to move this pawn to h6 or to h5. So pawn to h6, we go with the deflecting idea, bishop takes on b7. It's a deflection because now if this bishop takes, we go queen to f5, checkmate. And this is just beautiful. So they cannot do that. Instead, what black is going to attempt to do here is try to play this move. Now this queen has to go somewhere. And if it goes to the wrong square, then they can go ahead and capture this bishop, but we're not going to allow that. Instead, we're going to go queen to a5, still keeping an eye on the square on f5. So again, if black takes, we go queen to f5, checkmate. So that cannot happen, and on the next move, we are ready to take this rook. We're going to be up on exchange and a pawn, so life is going to be good. So here, black will continue with developing moves such as knight to f6. We take the rook, We continue the game, but we're up so much material, it should be a very simple exercise from here on. Now, let's go all the way back to the beginning because I want to show you what is actually the best move to play, and which is not to take here on e5. The best move here is actually to go queen to e7, attacking the knight. I'm forgetting about this whole business here on the queen side on the king side, sorry, by taking on e5. Here, our best continuation is to go back with the knight to f3. And after black captures on e4, we're going to put our bishop on e2, and notice something very important in this position. This queen is right in the middle of the board. So we're going to be able to develop our knight to c3 with tempo on the queen. The queen's going to have to move somewhere. And then we're also going to get this move castling king side, which at the same time, we're going to very fast put a rook on the e file, and this queen is lined up with the king. We're most likely going to win material here, and it's going to be a very successful game for us. Now, one thing that we need to avoid in this variation is not to fall for the idea that queen to h5 works here. This will be a horrendous move, and we will actually be losing if we do this. It looks very nice. It looks like after black plays pawn to g6, we're going to take with the knight, pawn takes, and we're going to take the rook. Well, that would be a mistake in our thinking process, because after yes, g6 is going to happen. But when we take with the knight, they're not going to take here. They're going to take here with check. And after we cover, they're going to take there with the queen. And we're going to be down a piece in this situation. So just retreat your knight to f3 and you should be fine. You should be able to win plenty of games here. Hope you guys enjoyed this very quick video. If you're black, don't fall for this trick. And if you're white, now you know how to punish it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Show respect to your opponent. See you on the next video.